come at the king, you best not miss.
You're now locked in this Zone 32.
Welcome back to Zone 32. We are a skeleton crew today. It's me, it's Will, and I got Drew in his car driving to Fenway Park. Probably going to end up either ramming someone or having someone brandish a firearm at him. He's already gotten into several altercations before we started recording, so let's hope that Drew let's hope that Drew makes it through this episode without getting attacked or arrested. That's the goal here.
I haven't even gotten out of my town yet. Wait till I get on Route 1 or if we're still recording like the Tobin Bridge and Storrow Drive, that'll be a fucking experience. So
yeah, this is going to be this is an experiment. I don't think we've ever recorded this show when the sun is up.
No, you and I did Lacey at like noon.
That's true. We did do that, but that was a special occasion. But we've never recorded like an actual like normal episode because that was just part of an episode. So we'll see how this goes.
Was Clem at night or was Clem was at night?
Yeah, he was at night. He was late night. I think it was like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, this is only the second Zone 32. I don't have a drink in my hand for it too. So
yeah, that's another thing. This is a completely sober Zone 32, which is very rare.
You retarded. The fuck's wrong with you? Sorry. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Anyway, we're off to a good start. I haven't said that word on the podcast in about 4 weeks, so broke a new record today. But yeah, I know we have some pressing issues we want to get into, so that's why we decided to do this today. I think the most pressing issue is Mark Andrews finally showing up at training camp or OTAs after he is the fourth highest paid tight end in the NFL, and I feel like that comes with the responsibility of showing up to OTAs. Am I doing this right, or am I, because he's white, am I not allowed to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's it's a narrative breaking observation, I'd say. Everybody wanted to single out Lamar because he missed 1 day of OTAs, and Mark Andrews missed the first full week. He's here now. He sounds, his comments were my favorite one was about with all the weapons in the room, and there's only one ball to go around. Does he have any concerns? Yeah. And he said, "I don't care."
Meanwhile, you got right before we hopped on and started recording, you read me the J.K. Dobbins tweet of talking about how he's Baltimore through and through, and he wants to be here till the end of his career, but he's not sure that's going to happen. That sounds like that's a guy who is unhappy with sharing the ball and doesn't want to be part of a team. And then you compare him to somebody like Mark Andrews. So I'm pretty sure if Mark Andrews got like 2 catches a game and they went 17-0, he'd be thrilled.
Right. Well, and obviously Mark Andrews playing tight end. He's been a premier pass catching tight end for basically his entire career, but certainly for the last 4 years, or 3 years. When he get drafted? He got drafted 2018.
He was 18.
Yeah. So for the past 4 years, definitely. But I'd say even that rookie year, he was one of the better pass receiving tight ends in the league. But he also blocks. He doesn't line up. I saw Pedro break down. Where he's lined up last year. Most of his snaps came out of the slot. He did not line up in line very much at all. But we may see a change in that with a more robust wide receiver group. So I think he'll do whatever you want him to do. He got his contract. He is a huge integral piece to the offense, and I don't know. He's not going to complain. I just cannot see him. He's never been a guy who complains about anything. Not that he ever has a reason to. He's always been the focal point. But
I think that he's the kind of guy, that if he wasn't the focal point and we won, like he'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That for him, it's all about winning and all about, like a functioning offense. Because I'm sure he hates being double and triple teamed, and I'm sure that he hates getting killed over the middle every time he, tries to run a seam or a post over the middle. And he knows that having Odell and Flowers and Bateman there, and maybe he'll get 20 less catches this year, or 20 or 30 less targets, whatever the number is. But it ends up in an easier season for him, less stress and winning football. I think he'll be thrilled with that.
Yeah, well, and he knows better than anybody. There's been times when the defense has been able to game plan to shut him down when he's basically been the only option in the past game. So now they can't do that. So he's going to benefit, even if he doesn't see the same sort of target share. He's going to get plenty of action. He's going to score touchdowns. He's going to get plenty of catches. It's just going to be maybe his volume goes down a tick, but I think it'll still convert. I don't know that we're going to see any sort of production, regression from him. I just think the volume in targets is the only thing that could see, a
Yeah, and if
change.
the volume goes down and the efficiency goes up, then that's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, definitely. And we got to get the other tight ends involved too. So and he's always been supportive of that. So again, I wasn't surprised at his comments, but I like them. Patrick Queen was another one. I liked everything I heard from him. He kind of
Well, he
owned.
seems to be taking he seems to be taking like the trade rumors well. Or I guess not really the trade rumors, but like they drafted Simpson, they have Roquan on the highest paid contract. They didn't pick up his 5th year option. And he kind of seems to be taking this as a year of like, if I'm in Baltimore, I'm going to do great. If I'm somewhere else, I'm going to do great. Like I'm going to, play my ass off and get another contract. So
Yeah, well,
I
and he
definitely
said,
like that attitude.
yeah, and he said he wants to be in Baltimore. And he acknowledged that, in his position, not getting the 5th year option picked up, having a guy drafted basically plays the same position as him. You go through a range of emotions. So his sort of played out publicly. Not, and I don't even know. I would even say that he wasn't
Yeah, he had that.
overly emotional
He
about
had
it, but
he had one tweet, and it was I don't even think it was words. I think it was emojis.
he said
And like
sheesh. I think he said sheesh.
I said, serious, yeah, maybe. But people obviously ran with that, and like he put himself in that position. But also, again, he kind of owned it. And you could be Patrick Queen in this situation who handled it correctly, or you could be Chuck Clark. You know what I mean? Who
Yep.
cried about it. So
Right.
again, we have a lot of guys on this team who seem to handle those awkward spots pretty well. And that's kind of what you need to do to have a winning football team is you need the right attitude, and it seems like a lot of our guys have the right attitude this year for the first time
Yeah.
in a long time.
This time last year, remember it was like I think when Steve Bisciotti did that interview last year, and he said first he made the comments about the Watson deal and those ruffled some people's feathers because basically it was him saying like we're not going to give that contract out, so anybody who thinks we are should probably rethink that. But he also said he just wanted like drama free. I'm pretty sure he's the one who said that, right? He just wanted
Yeah,
things to be drama
that was
free
him,
around
and
the
then
team. And it got very dramatic.
because it got very dramatic because people were like, "Well, Steve, it's only drama because you won't sign Lamar," and then it just all spiraled from there.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we're in such a different place, right now. It's June 1st. So last June 1st, lot was up in the air. This June 1st, we have what everyone, not just in Baltimore, though, national media is calling a Super Bowl contender team. We have a lot of guys showing up for OTAs, and sounds like they're excited and optimistic, and just the whole vibe around the team is completely different. 365 days later. So that's a nice place for us as fans to not have to be overanalyzing everything, even though people still do.
Like everybody seems excited for the season to start, whereas I feel like last year was kind of like everybody kind of had something to prove. You had the Lamar contract hanging over people's heads. You had the owner come out talking about not wanting drama. You had, Chuck Clark before the year, who was supposed to be a leader, was requesting trades, talking about how he felt disrespected. Like you just have a whole different vibe, and it's like a good vibe. It's not it's not a we're tanking. It's not people don't doubt the Ravens anymore. People know the Ravens are a good team, and they're kind of acting that way, which I like.
Yeah. Now there is one, I guess hot topic going around because since we recorded last week, DeAndre Hopkins, has he been officially released?
Yeah. Because they did it pre-June 1 because they're going to eat the cap hit this year because they're obviously tanking. So,
yeah.
You don't have Kyler back until midseason, so they might as well just lose as much as possible and rack up draft picks.
Right. So yeah, DeAndre Hopkins has been released. He's a free agent. And obviously, over the past couple weeks and, even before that, he was linked with Lamar and with the Ravens a lot. The Ravens tried to trade for him a few years back, but when he got traded to Arizona. And, I think before we got Odell, it would have been a no-brainer. I think he would have been, he would have gotten straight on a plane and come here. But
and he even linked himself to Lamar. He said that Lamar was one of the quarterbacks that he wanted to play with during his career.
Right.
And that was fairly recently on that I Am Athlete podcast.
It was in the last 2 weeks or so. So now that he's a free agent, there's a lot of kind of conflicting information coming out about what he's going to do because, when he was still with Arizona, the first thing that he said, I think it was like in January or February, he said like, I'll do anything that I need to do to win. So it's like, if you need me to block, I'll block. And that was sort of like, that felt like he was talking to the Ravens when he said that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely
Um,
got that vibe.
yeah. And then he said, like we said, he said specifically he would like to play with Lamar. He named 5 guys, and it was Lamar, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes,
I
Justin
think he said
Herbert.
Hurts.
Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts. Those were the 5. And so since the release, everybody's wondering where he's going to go. The 2 heavy favorites that have been talked about the most have been Kansas City and Buffalo. Kansas City makes a whole lot of sense just from a roster construction standpoint. They don't really have a clear cut
Number one.
top guy there. Buffalo obviously has Diggs, and they have Gabe Davis behind him, but they could probably use another. They could probably use some more firepower, I guess. I don't know how
Gabe
much.
Davis is really not as good as people make him out to be. He had that one great playoff game,
Right.
and I feel like people kind of expected a step out of him that he's yet to make. So I definitely could see him fitting in Buffalo. I could definitely see him fitting with the Chiefs. I don't know how much I want to get into because I've been telling you about the red flags behind the scenes, but I know you tweeted the vault clip. Yeah, so somebody called Sarah and said, like the Ravens basically weren't that hot on DeAndre Hopkins, and she didn't want to get into why. And I feel like it's probably the same thing that I've heard. Those rumors have been floating around up here since January, since the whole trading Hopkins talk started, because it initially started with, the Patriots should go get DeAndre Hopkins. They're like, Yankees and Jets fans and Knicks fans, where every premier guy is going to end up in New England, and all that shit about Bill Belichick loves DeAndre Hopkins and blah blah blah. And so stuff started circulating up here, and I've now heard it from Massachusetts people, and I've heard it from Ravens people, and it's not good. And the reason why I don't really want to say it is because if it's not true, I'd kind of look like an asshole for bringing it up.
Right.
But there are some questionable things about DeAndre Hopkins as a person, and then there's also some questionable things about him in the locker room. I feel like those are fair to talk about because he played in some really shitty situations in Houston and in Arizona, and so the rumors floating around are that he's not really a team guy, and he's kind of selfish, and he doesn't really adhere to team workout programs. He doesn't really like being part of team meetings. He doesn't like like not being openly critical of his teammates and his coaches. Like he's not really respectful to other people. I also understand that like where he played kind of factors into that. Like, again, if you played for the Texans, are you going to be nice to any of those shitbag coaches? Or, Arizona's been a fucking train wreck since he got there too. So that side of it, I could at least, talk away. But the other red flags are kind of, they're concerning to me. And I don't know if that's like a tactic to drive his price down, or if there's, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's been, Bill O'Brien allegedly, and this is public, Bill O'Brien allegedly compared him to Aaron Hernandez to his face. And I'm not sure Bill O'Brien was that far off if everything that I've heard is true.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard anything directly from anybody. It's all been secondhand. I mean,
yeah, and
the Ravens
are
doing their due diligence here. I don't know how likely it is that they would sign him no matter what, just because they've already invested so heavily in the position. And the dumbest argument against it that I've seen a lot is, and I think we did talk about this before, is just the whole thing of like how it's going to make other people feel. But
yeah,
I don't
you're
give a fuck about that.
Yeah, you're trying to field a winning football team. Like at some point, it's fuck everybody else's feelings. And like if you have a guy like DeAndre Hopkins available at a price you're comfortable with, you almost can't say no.
Right.
And so now with all this, and none of these rumors have come out publicly, as far as I've seen. Like nobody has really said what I've heard, directly what I said. But if it gets to a point where he's, we're getting into July and August and he's unsigned, and like he's looking for a veteran minimum contract with a bunch of I don't know, bonuses built into it. Like I don't know if you can say no to that as the Ravens.
No, I agree. Because I mean, right now they have a bunch of receivers on the roster who are easily replaceable. And it starts with obviously Prochet. And we're not going to talk too much about him. I know his mother died last week, so we're certainly not going to pile on. But
No, but
Prochet.
even if you start up at the top, so if you want to call Odell our number one wide receiver, okay, he hasn't played in a year. He's coming off a double ACL. Like it would be nice to have some insurance with him, another guy that can step up. Bateman's missed 16 of 34 games since getting drafted, and Zay Flowers has not played a snap in the NFL. And so I feel like if you're gonna, you have the option to add DeAndre Hopkins to that group and he really doesn't cost you any kind of money and it's a contract you can get out of if there are really issues with him, like it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, same. I mean, right now as we sit here on June 1st, it's not a no-brainer. It's just, it's obviously like you give it plenty of thought, you dig into it, you see what his price tag is, you see if you're comfortable with, all the whatever there is, the underlying issues, whether they're real or not, all that stuff. And then you make a decision from there, and the decision could be just to wait it out and see what happens with the market. But the people making these strong, they have these strong feelings about, oh no, we shouldn't sign him because of this or because of that. That's stupid. We have like $11 million in cap room and we have about $24 million in restructures we could do. So like there is no position or player that we can't acquire right now. Like if we need to do a few things, we can do it all. We still can do it all. That should not be a concern because we are so loaded right now going into this season that I think it would be irresponsible to not make, more additions to make the team even better if we can do it.
Yeah, the two arguments that I keep seeing over and over again are that you're going to hurt Rashad Bateman's feelings because, and I don't know where this happened, but everybody keeps quoting some, mythical conversation with Rashad Bateman where they told him that they had faith in him and that he could be an alpha for them. And my counter argument to that is that like signing DeAndre Hopkins does not at all inhibit, Rashad Bateman from being a number one wide receiver. If he's the, if he shows out on the field, like he's going to be your number one wide receiver. So it doesn't matter if you have DeAndre Hopkins there or not. Like he's going to, if he plays well, he's going to earn that spot. And he's going to earn those targets. He's going to earn those snaps. You can also look at like, Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I think he only played like 30% of the snaps for the Vikings last year. So it's not like, Rashad Bateman to put up great numbers and be a great wide receiver has to be on the field all the time. You can work through some kind of rotation. You can have a lot of guys who are really good who need the ball. And then the other argument that people keep using is that we need edge rushers and we need cornerbacks. And that makes no sense to me because, you're not going to go out and pay a Leonard Floyd $11 million. Like the guys that are available on the market right now don't cost that kind of money that it would stop you from getting Hopkins.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what I mean. Like, probably we can't do it all with the cap space that we have now, all those things, but we have moves to make. And like I said, we can get any player that's available and it's not, and still go into the season with, plenty of cap room. And I'm just, the people who make these arguments, it's just like, it's the same as when we were talking about a couple of years ago, like signing Julio Jones or trading for Julio Jones or whatever the case may be. But like people who are like, oh no, they're back then, their reason was like, I have faith in James Prochet, So it's just like a new day and a new stupid ass reason why we shouldn't do something obvious that would obviously improve the team. I want the best team. I don't give a fuck. If you can make it happen, if you can add DeAndre Hopkins, go for it. I'm not here to like whatever's going on. His attitude, his off-field behavior, all that shit. I really don't give a fuck about it. It's not my problem. He's not. We're not signing him to be my friend. We're signing him to play football. So like, assuming he's going to be available to play football, I don't really give a shit about any of that stuff personally.
Yeah, that's really the key is as long as his off-field issues and his attitude, and there was other talk about like medical, like the PED use, and as long as he's going to be available for 17 games, put him on my team. That's really.
And even if it's like 15 games, again, it's just like if we can make the team better, go for it. If it's going to be something where it's like he's going to be suspended for 10 games or something, then yeah, I'll pass on that. But as long as he's available for most of the season, he represents a huge upgrade. It would be by far the best group of wide receivers the Ravens have ever had, and it would be arguably the best group of wide receivers in the NFL. I mean, the Bengals probably have an argument still to be better, I guess, because they're younger. But I mean, with that group, 4 guys that good on one team is just unheard of.
Yeah, and you would be looking at, you'd be like rebuilding the Tampa offense that won the Super Bowl that year with an arguably better quarterback or a more dynamic quarterback.
Right.
Zay Flowers could be your Antonio Brown. I mean, again, you have Evans and Godwin, clones with Hopkins and Modell. Like it would just be that offense. You couldn't stop that offense. It would be unreal. And again, like I'm not talking about going out and throwing DeAndre Hopkins like 2-year, $40 million contract to make him like the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. But if you can get him within reason, there's no reason to not do that.
Right. Yeah. Totally agree. I feel like there was
Yeah,
something.
I feel like our fans are broken because this is the first time in honestly a really long time that there have not been major questions going into the going into this point in the offseason with this team. Like
Yeah.
every year it's been oh my God, is this is OA going to work out? We don't have any wide receivers, we don't have any our corner is going to be fine. Our running backs are all hurt. Like we've always had some major flaw in the team. And really right now it looks like left guard is the biggest question. And it's
Yeah.
not really do we have talent to start there? It's who's going to win that starting job.
Yeah. Well, and all I saw was a picture, but Ben Cleveland looks like he's in really good shape. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, and again, I've read a lot about Greg Roman's offense being, tough to grasp for running backs and offensive linemen. And that's why, like when we brought in Le'Veon Bell last minute and we brought in Deontay Freeman last minute and Latavius Murray and all these guys, like they struggled out of the gate because they couldn't pick up the offense very quickly. And I wonder if that was part of the problem with Cleveland is that, Greg Roman was asking too much out of him, or that offense asked for too much out of him, and maybe Monken can simplify things for him. And now you have, a Pro Bowl caliber left guard that you drafted in the third round a couple years ago that you expected.
Yeah, and I mean it's happened now several times that we've had interior offensive linemen who were sort of underperforming, and then they get to the point where they're sort of like pushed into starting a starting role, and they flourish. So I'm not necessarily expecting that from Cleveland, but wouldn't be surprised by it.
Yeah, this is a sink or swim year for him because if he's not, I think if he loses the left guard job, he's off the roster. I
Yeah,
don't think that they're going to pay him the last year of his contract. I think that they'll, look to move him and do what they did with like Bredesen or something like that. And, maybe get like a late round pick for him or just let him walk completely and save the money. Regardless, like this is kind of his shot. And, you have Voorhees waiting in the wings because if Zeitler doesn't retire, then you could put Voorhees right at left guard. And then, he costs a third of what Cleveland will cost and Cleveland will be out on the street. So this is definitely kind of his, put up or shut up year. And I'm kind of hoping that this is the year that he, proves that he was worth that third round pick.
Right. Well, and then, next year, then it gives a lot of options on the interior line. So, that offensive line, yeah, I guess if there's any question right now, it's definitely left guard. But again, like you said, it's not a question of like, oh, we're going to be fucked at left guard. It's who's going to be the left guard, and let's go.
Yeah, because if it's Makari, then maybe you need more out of Falele this year, or you need that Manning kid that was a UDFA to work out or whatever. Like the offensive line is obviously a big concern for every team, but you need answers at who's starting at left guard so you can kind of fill out the depth spots from there.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to think. What we talked about a few different things that needed to be addressed on this episode, and I feel like we're missing one.
I feel like we're missing something big too. I mean, we made fun of the training camp nerds, the VDs of the world, and the Mike Florios, and the 3-letter blogs that will remain nameless, just to salvage your professional relationships.
There was one thing that I don't even think we talked about it before we started recording, but apparently Marcus Peters and Lamar Jackson had an altercation towards the end of the season. That was more. It was the aggression was more, which not surprising, was more from the Marcus Peters side about Lamar not playing through the injury, and people wondering if that plays into him not being here now.
So I read that was the same individual that I've said I won't name for your sake, but wrote that article. I feel like that guy and people like him will nitpick these stories that are aged, if that makes sense. Like back when that happened, that might have been a relevant talking point, that there's discourse in the locker room and this team's kind of destined for some issues because there's, issues going on in the locker room. But right now, I don't think any of that matters anymore. I mean, Marcus Peters was in Lamar's Instagram comments the other day talking about how he misses his guys.
Yeah.
And like, is he going to say that if he actually had beef with Lamar?
Right.
Or did
Well,
Marcus Peters see last year as a chance of him winning a ring, and Lamar not being there obviously hurt that chance of a ring, and so he took his frustrations out on Lamar? Like that's much more plausible to me than that there was actual issues. You're in week, and I don't remember exactly when he said this altercation took place, but
I think he said it
you're
was in January or late December. So it's going to be around the same time as what Banks was talking about, where
there was problems going on.
Yeah, the like veterans in the locker room were not happy that Lamar was that, and some people call it milking the injury. Other people were calling it like being too cautious, or some people were saying he wasn't getting treatment. Whatever was going on, that there were veteran players who sort of called him out on it, and then there was like speculation that it was like Justin Houston and Calais Campbell. Would make sense to me that that Marcus Peters would be somebody who did that, because he's an emotional guy, and I don't think it's any different than him getting into it with Harbaugh on the field. And then Harbaugh even said, like, that's just kind of how it goes with Marcus Peters. You got to take the good with the bad with him, and then you afterwards you have a conversation, clear the air, and you move on.
Okay, and so if you're a player on that team, Tyler Huntley sucks, and that's being a little bit too blunt, but it is what it is. Like, they knew Tyler Huntley was not going to be able to carry them past a wild card win if he was even capable of doing that. And so they know that their season kind of rests on Lamar Jackson's shoulders. And, you've been getting the shit kicked out of you for 15, 16 weeks at that point. Like, you're going to want your guy to come back at 90% because a 90% healthy Lamar Jackson is better than Tyler Huntley. But then when you look at it from Lamar's point of view, like, he doesn't have a contract. He relies a lot on his mobility because of how bad Greg Roman's scheme was. And he felt like he was setting himself up to get injured worse if he comes back. So there's like two sides to every coin. And that's like a disagreement that if it was reported at the time, you could look at both sides of that argument and kind of see where they're both coming from.
Yeah.
But now you're reporting that in June, and it's like, what does that accomplish? Like, what was the point of that whole story of, I don't think Marcus Peters is not back here because he fought with Lamar Jackson in January. I think Marcus Peters is not back here because he probably wants a lot of money, or the Ravens don't see a fit for him on the team right now because they don't think that they need to, and I know a lot of our fans love to pound the table and talk about how we love to overpay mid-level guys. Giving Marcus Peters, $10 million would be overpaying a mid-level guy at this point. So
giving Marcus Peters the same contract that Rocky Sin got, I think would be overpaying him at this point, considering what we saw from him last year. He would need to take a contract that was like $3 million base, with incentives to get him up maybe to 6 or 7 million, based on playing time and production. But and he might not be ready to accept that at this juncture. And also, we have a lot of cornerbacks on the roster. We just don't have a lot of proven cornerbacks. So we're just in week 2 of OTAs. I think they probably want to see a lot of those guys on the field and make some assessments there about what kind of depth do we really need to add to this group.
Because how long is Marcus Peters there for? I mean, realistically, so you bring him back for another year, like you're just kicking the can down the road. So then you've wasted another year on Pepe Williams and Jalen Armour-Davis's rookie contracts where you don't really know what you have with them. Mm-hmm. And then you might get into like an Anthony Averett situation with them where, you finally do give them the keys to the car, for lack of a better, comparison. And now all of a sudden they ball out and they go play themselves out of the market here. Like, you're not going to pay Jalen Armour-Davis top of the market contract money, and you really only got 1 year usefulness out of him if you keep burying him on the depth chart underneath Marcus Peters. Like, at some point, you got to see what you have. You used higher picks on them, so you might as well kind of roll them out and see what they have.
Yeah. Well, and people are ignoring that we did. So we have Marlon. We signed, presumably, the second cornerback is going to be Rocky Sin. We drafted another cornerback. Not that he's going to be a day one, he's not going to be the third cornerback day one. He's going to have to earn that. But like, they've invested at the position. So just to people who are acting like because we don't have like 2 all-pro cornerbacks, we're fucked, are insane. And in like last year, Marcus Peters wasn't very good.
No, and he was coming off major knee. He's a little bit older.
Yeah.
And it was a new scheme for him. So like, I definitely understand why he struggled. and maybe he comes back this year and he's back to all pro Marcus Peters, but maybe he's not. And so why would your season hinge on signing an unknown like that? That's probably going to ask for $6-7 million. That's why we got rid of Calais Campbell. That's probably why we're not going to bring Justin Houston back unless he's going to take another cheap deal. That's why we're not going out and going crazy and signing like Yannick Ngakoue or Leonard Floyd, to these bigger money contracts. Because a lot of those guys are probably sitting on their hands saying that, maybe OTA, somebody tears an ACL and now some team comes knocking down my door. So why would we overextend to go get, potentially middle of the market talent for top dollar?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we may see Marcus Peters back. We may not. It's certainly not going to happen in the month of June. In my opinion, it wouldn't be until closer to training camp. Probably, the second, maybe around 4th of July or going to the second week of July, we'll see some of these veteran guys finally take deals. And then even like Ndamukong Suh, he said he has no interest in going to any training camp. So like, it may be that Justin Houston doesn't want to go to camp this year. So he may just be waiting.
Yeah, and I mean he's old as shit and he fizzled out at the end of last year. So if it takes him not coming to OTAs and signing and not coming to training camp and signing like after week 3 of the preseason so that he's good to go for all 17 games, then I'm on board with that. Like fuck it. It's about winning and it's about having the best guys in the best spot. And right now we don't have these massive needs anywhere that like we need to fill them tomorrow. Like we have time. Time is on our side.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that we do now is gravy, really. It's like, we essentially have what we are going to roll with. DeAndre Hopkins makes things interesting because that's a high caliber player that you don't often see come available at this juncture. So like something with that could happen sooner than later. But the other, as far as the other guys go, Marcus Peters, Justin Houston, Yannick is another guy who you never know. He could be on our radar. I don't know. Jadeveon Clowney, Leonard Floyd, Ndamukong Suh, all those guys, all those veterans. I don't think you see them sign until camp starts or around the beginning of camp. I don't think they're in any rush to sign. None of those guys want to put extra stress on their bodies. So I just think again, it's just like our fan base in particular is conditioned to like want to have something to complain about, or there has to be some controversy going at all times, and really there just isn't one right now. So
I'm about to go through a tunnel.
Okay. All right. Well, this is probably a good spot to end it then, because I think we've covered everything. You're about to drive through a tunnel, and it's service is spotty. So, yeah. All right. Well, this is gonna be the end of the episode. Jake is not dying this week. Drew is dying this week, as you can hear. So, I guess some people will be really excited to hear that happen. They've been waiting for that for a long time. We'll catch everybody next week.
See ya!
Well, that was too perfect.
Zone 32.